Land acknowledgments. They're about righting a past wrong, except that's not your past. It's not your parents' past, and even your grandparents had nothing to do with it. It's about not being racist, except you're not racist. You haven't done anything racist, so why would that be how you prove you're not racist? And Canada isn't racist either. It's about giving back something that's not yours because it's stolen, right? Except you didn't steal it. You're Canadian. And let's face it, you're not going to be giving anybody your land if you're fortunate enough to own it. So what exactly are we reciting land acknowledgements for, especially when there are hundreds of First Nation band governments fighting over whose land is who between them? So why aren't more people questioning it or flat out opposing it? And why are the very few who do getting backlash? I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, bringing you an interview with Catherine Kronas. She is a twice elected school council member who has a student in the Ancaster High School Secondary, and she was suspended by the Hamilton Wentworth Board because she respectfully refused to be compelled to engage in a land acknowledgement in one of the council meetings.
As a parent member of the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, I would like to emphasize that Principal does not speak on my behalf with regards to the land acknowledgement. In my view, the board's imposition of a land acknowledgement during our school council meetings undermines the democratic process and constitutes a form of compelled speech, which I believe contravenes the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. There is no school board policy mandating its inclusion.
Catherine Kronas joins us now. Thanks for being on Rebel News.
Hi, Drea. Thanks for having me.
Tell us why you wanted to be on the school council.
I've been studying what's been happening in education for several years, and I just wanted to start to participate. I wanted to get a ground level idea of what's happening, and I know that parent council is a way to sort of connect with local community at the school, and I want to be engaging and talking with other parents.
And then you get elected not once but twice. And then earlier this spring, something happens. You decide you can't do this any longer, and you take a stand that came with a cost. What was the final straw for you?
Oh, I just, this issue of the land acknowledgement, I had been studying the policy and I had been watching, I understood what the goals of parent council are supposed to be and the reasons that were legislated. And I was just frustrated with the board imposing something that hasn't been decided by the council. I was not the only member. I am not the only member of the community or the school who has an issue with the land acknowledgement being read at parent council or school council meetings. I had been talking to several parents at the schools who were quite frustrated with it. So I just wanted to raise an objection. I wanted other parents to know that I was not okay with it, and I wanted to do it in a formal way.
You did it formally, you did it respectfully, and some time passed, weeks, I think, close to a month, and boom, all of a sudden you learned that you were suspended. Walk us through what that was like. How did you find out? And what did you find out exactly at that time?
Well, I was actually quite shocked. I had studied the policies, the code of conducts. We had a meeting in February where the council was talking about the issue of free speech. I expressed fears at that meeting that I felt unsafe. I actually used the word, I felt terrified to speak up at meetings because I knew I could see what was happening to people with conservative or classical liberal views speaking up against sort of the more progressive orthodoxy. Mm-hmm. And so we had a discussion in February, and I was assured by council members that this was a free speech place, that it should be safe, that we should be able to push back, and so I studied the policies, I studied the code of conduct, I was aware of the human rights policy in Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. I felt that I was safe to issue a brief objection. I didn't want to initiate a discussion because I had already been criticized about wasting council time. So I was like, okay, let's just issue a brief objection, put it on the record, and let's move on. And the council at that time, they actually agreed to put my objection in the minutes, and there was no issue at the meeting. There was no conflict. We just moved on.
Again, weeks pass, and then you get this letter here accusing you of breaching some sort of code, which you say you've studied extensively. And if we pull up the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom site here, because they're taking on your legal action, whatever that looks like, starting with the demand letter and maybe beyond. But they point out in their letter, they argue that you didn't even tell her what she did wrong. You're accusing her of breaking a code and saying you committed some sort of harm against some people. What do you make of that?
Yes, they didn't provide any information. Somebody claimed I caused harm, or who even claimed I caused harm? Was it a council member? Was it a member of the community? I don't know. Somebody who attended that meeting. We don't know what part of the code of conduct I was apparently supposed to have violated. And they also didn't give me any information as to how this would be resolved, who I could talk to, what's the procedure for dealing with this suspension, and how I could reinstitute myself or get myself back onto council.
When it comes to land acknowledgements, you're right. Your position on them is not something that is unique to yourself or unique to your region. This is an issue across the country. And so is the trend of people who bring light to the compelled speech, being attacked, being labeled as hateful or what have you. But yet here we are, we still see, whether it's a police press conference, whether it's our child's assembly, whether it's the end of an email from a doctor, we see these land acknowledgements happening in pretty much everywhere, including the school council setting. What do you think is really at play here? Why is that so prevalent now?
It does seem to be we're starting to go down the totalitarian route with it. Like maybe it's a form of soft totalitarianism where it just seems like these political messages or political in this land acknowledgement, it's like a creed, some sort of ritual that it just seems to be encroaching on more and more of our, spaces that should perhaps not be political or at least politically neutral. I'm actually quite alarmed to see that there's other new not a land acknowledgement, but there's now at that press conference, there was an African and ancestral acknowledgement as well. So you can see how it could start to become an issue where we have all these special interest groups wanting to have special statements before every meeting. And I would say that if in this case with the land acknowledgement at our school, I really take issue with the fact that the board is imposing it on the school council. School council should be fairly independent, and we should be able to decide what gets said in our meetings or not. So I would probably be objecting to any forced statements that the school was trying to force on the parent council or school council.
Right. These are unsolicited statements. And actually, you triggered my memory. I wasn't even specifically talking about that specific police press conference, because I've seen it happen in more than once. But let's show the viewers, in case they don't know what you're talking about. Here is an example of I believe it's the RCMP outside of Nova Scotia, talking about something so tragic, so important, 2 missing kids that have been missing for days. And they get up there and they're going to give an update to the community that's helped search for them. And here is how they start that important message.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am Corporal Carly McCann, Provincial Public Information Officer for the Nova Scotia RCMP. Thank you all for being here today. Bonjour, je suis la caporale Carly McCann, agent d'information publique pour la GRC en Nouvelle-Écosse. Merci de votre présence aujourd'hui. First, I acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I also recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years.
All right, so give us an update. We've already mentioned that the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, which is a nonprofit, is kind of helping you out here. They put out a legal demand letter before, at the time of filming this, before the last meeting. They didn't back down. Your lawyer told us, you know what, she's still suspended. What's your thoughts on that, and what's the latest?
So the latest is that we've just received a response from the board that they have received the demand letter that the lawyer sent 2 days ago, and that they will be replying in a timely manner, whatever that means.
Okay.
So I think the big thing is that they suspended me without due process. Mm-hmm. So there was, again, they didn't give me any information about this, about the suspension, but the suspension was also based on allegations, not any sort of, they were still investigating. So at this point, they have sort of violated the due process because they didn't let me back on. I don't know what we are going to do going forward. Obviously, my goal is to be allowed to be back on the council, but the damage has already been done because I had to miss a council meeting on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And it's also been a little bit tough because I feel now ostracized from mm-hmm. the council. It's obviously gone out to the parent community that I have been suspended, and I've been suspended without being actually officially charged with anything, and not been able to properly defend myself yet. And so it's not a great feeling.
If you want to share more stories like this one, so more people are more comfortable talking about Canadian opinions, like, hey, we're all Canadian, we have a special website called kamloopsdocumentary.com with plenty of stories just like this. And if you appreciate that Rebel News stands in the gap to bring sanity back on issues, even when there's backlash for doing so, consider donating what you can while you're there.